Okay, let's begin. Welcome everyone. Welcome to session number 211 of Kevin Reads A Course in Miracles. Right. Today we will focus on chapter 27, entitled The Healing of the Dream, and we will be in section 4, Roman numeral 4, IV. Alrighty then. And that is entitled The Quiet Answer. Alrighty. Let's just begin. In quietness are all things answered, and is every problem quietly resolved. In conflict there can be no answer and no resolution, for its purpose is to make no resolution possible, and to ensure no answer will be plain. A problem set in conflict has no answer, for it is seen in different ways. And what would be an answer from one point of view is not an answer in another light. You are in conflict. Thus, it must be clear you cannot answer anything at all, for conflict has no limited effects. Yet if God gave an answer, there must be a way in which your problems are resolved, for what he wills already has been done. Okay. I mean, that's the gist of the whole thing. That's the message of this whole section, really. She's just going to go on to get a little bit more specific about questions and answers and things like that. But everything can be answered in that quiet moment, that holy instant. That going to the stately calm within. All right, we call it the right mind also in the Course in Miracles, the right mind. All right, the correct mind. All right, the corrected mind, all those things. All right. In quietness are all things answered. You might recall that the Course in Miracles teaches that there's only one problem. Right? Every problem is quietly resolved, right, in the right mind, in the holy instant. No matter what we think the problem is, right, we can go to the holy instant. We can go to that stately calm within. Just a matter of quieting the mind, right? All types of ways to meditate and come into the present moment, and that's what he's talking about, coming into that present moment and leaving expectations at the door and just sit down, come with wholly empty hands unto your God. And allow that the truth of everything come into your mind, so that when you come back into your situations where you have your problem, right, it can be seen differently. Okay, it could be understood, and you can be peaceful. In quietness are all things answered, and every problem is quietly resolved. And then he says the purpose of the world is to keep you away from that. Right? The purpose of the world is to keep you busy, in conflict, he says, And he says you are in conflict. And we are. Once we align ourselves with the belief in separation, right? Once we believe we're separated from the oneness, we are in conflict. It's just the nature of separation. Everything continues to separate and conflict with each other. And a problem set in a conflict has no answer. Because, you can always look at it in different ways. Right? And they always said, like, someone, I think it was in the UN, writings of the UN, that in every peace treaty are the seeds of the next conflict. Right? Because you see things differently. And that's what the world is all about. The world is all about conflict. Right? Its purpose is to make no resolution possible. Just to keep you running around like a shrew, like a nut. All righty then. So he says, you are in conflict. Thus it must be clear you cannot answer anything at all, for conflict has no limited effects. Right? Conflict, those of us in conflict are always conflicted. Right? Has no limits. Right? Yet, if God gave an answer, there must be a way in which your problems are resolved, for what he wills already has been done. Right? God's will for us is happiness. God's will for us is the awareness of the happiness. The roots of the happiness is the oneness and the connection with him. Right? Once again, remember, we're using the language of the Course in Miracles, which was, written 50 years ago. All right? And if there is a problem with the language or with the pronouns and things like that, don't give up on it. Just see if you can ask your higher self, see if you can bring this to the holy instant and say, how can I see this differently? Because the language is causing me conflict. It's conflicting with me. It's an obstacle to my peace. All right? And the world always wants us to stay away from this holy instant. And he says, but God wants you to be happy. And what he wills has been done already. It's just another statement of what we call the atonement principle. You are at home, innocent, and happy. Happy as a metaphysical clam. All right? And God wills it. So there must be a way for us to see our problems in this experience here, in this world. All right? Paragraph 2. Thus, it must be that time is not involved and every problem can be answered now. Yet it must also be that in your state of mind, solution is impossible. Therefore, God must have given you a way of reaching to another state of mind in which the answer is already there. Such is the holy instant. It is here that all your problems should be brought and left. Here they belong, For here their answer is. And where its answer is, a problem must be simple and be easily resolved. It must be pointless to attempt to solve a problem where the answer cannot be. Yet just as surely, it must be resolved if it is brought to where the answer is. Okay. So where the answers are, where the answer is in the mind, aligned with the Holy Spirit, aligned with the memory of God. Right? That just put down the concepts of the world just momentarily and come to that holy instant. Come to that present moment. And he says, it's here that all your problems should be brought and left. That's why I incessantly say, help me to see correctly. Right? I have a problem. I realize it's a problem. I realize I'm confused. I don't have an answer. Help me to see correctly is a good request. Right? I'm going to that holy instant. I'm going to that right mind. Right? I'm aligning myself with the memory of who I really am. I'm aligning myself with my higher self, right? Symbolized by Jesus and Holy Spirit. And I'm just sitting in the presence of that, the presence of the truth. I'm saying, help me correct my perception. Help me with what I think is this problem. Right? So he says it's pointless to attempt to solve a problem where the answer cannot be. And the answer cannot be in the ego thought system. There's no permanent answer. Okay? And the only permanent answer will be the awareness of your innocence and peace. The true answer, when the truth comes up, and truth is reflected in everything you see. He says that's why time is not involved, because you're already in that state. You just don't realize it. All right. He says so it's not waiting on time for anything. All right. We're not wait a few more years, you'll be okay. All right. Just wait for that to kick in. He says in this present moment you are okay. You are everything. Right? Thus it must be that time is not involved, and every problem can be answered now. Right? And yet it must also be that in your state of mind, solution is impossible. So our state of mind is that belief that we're separated, that we're here on our own, we're individuals. Right now I have to, by hook or by crook, as they used to say, get what I need. And he says, solution is impossible here in this crazy dream. He says, therefore, God must have given you a way of reaching another state of mind in which the answer is already there. And we can reach that other state of mind. That's the holy instant. And there's through the ages, I mean, through the eons, people have experienced extended periods of conjunction with the truth. They've joined the truth, and they've come back to tell people about it. And there's all different ways of meditating, so to speak, right? From the secular to the spiritual. Right? There's all different ways of quieting, slowing down the thoughts. Right? The Buddhists would say, calming the monkeys in the tree making all that noise. Or noticing that you're having thoughts, as Pema Chodron's friend would say. She relayed a story about a friend of hers who would, all of a sudden he'd go, oh, thinking, which meant that he was off on a thought that was taking him away from his present. Right? The holy instant, we call it here in the Course. And it is here that all your problems should be brought right into that present moment. Here they belong, for here their answer is. Right? Sentence 7. And where the answer is, a problem must be simple and be easily resolved. Right? And that's it. We don't go there already expecting what the solution is going to look like. I just want to get in touch with the truth. I want to sit in the light, however you want to put it. Right? I don't need to tell my higher self what the solution looks like. Okay. He says, it's pointless to attempt to solve a problem where the answer cannot be in this form, in this world. Yet just as surely, it must be resolved if it is brought to where the answer is. Right? And the answer is in the mind joined with the Holy Spirit. Right? The mind joined with the memory of truth. Paragraph 3. Attempt to solve no problems but within the holy instant's surety. For there the problem will be answered and resolved. Outside there will be no solution. For there is no answer. There is no answer there that could be found. Nowhere outside a single simple question is ever asked. Nowhere outside. A single simple question is ever asked. The world can only ask double questions. One with many answers can have no answer. None of them will do. It does not ask a question to be answered, but only to restate its point of view. That's what Jesus means by a double question. The questions of the world are only to restate its point of view. It sounds like a question, but it already has its answer. Right? Always, why is the sky blue? All right. Jesus would say it's already creating propaganda for itself, making the sky and the color real. Thank you. Excuse me. All right. So nowhere is there a simple question ever asked. All right. Questions, he always says, are always propaganda for the ego thought system. Right? It's like the world is real and we can't understand it. Right? So, why are there so many climate zones? All right? Anything, right? Why do people look different? Why are there so many languages? All right? Everything is just, it's actually a statement, right? That people are different. There's all different ways of making sounds and being understood, and so that's the world of, that's in the ego world of questions. It asks, but to establish that sin is real. All right? The world exists. It's real. Paragraph 4. All questions asked within this world are but a way of looking, not a question asked. A question asked in hate cannot be answered because it is an answer in itself. A double question asks and answers, both attesting to the same thing in different form. The world asks but one question, and it is this: of these illusions, which of them is true? Which one establishes peace and offers joy? And which can bring escape from all the pain of which the world is made? Whatever form the question takes, its purpose is the same. It asks but to establish sin is real, and answers in the form of preference. Which sin do you prefer? This is the one that you should choose. The others are not true. What can the body get that you would want the most of all? It is your servant and also your friend. But tell it what you want, and it will serve you lovingly and well. And this is not a question, for it tells you what you want and where to go for it. It leaves no room to question its beliefs, except that what it states takes question's form. All right? So all those things were the way the ego poses questions, the way we pose questions. All right? What job should I take? Which person should I marry? Right? Which car should I have? Which house should I live in? What town should I live in? Right? What clothes should I put on? What colors are good for me? I mean, a billion questions, really? And they're all saying, which illusion is true? Which illusion do you prefer? You prefer the green or the blue? They're both illusions, but the way the question is posed, they make everything real. All right? Clothing is real, the color is real, right? The job is real, right? The necessity of employment is real. It goes on and on. And it's just to establish the safety and the comfort of the body, right? Because we're underlying it all, the body is real, has to be taken care of, has to be protected and adorned and all that other stuff, all right? So he says they're really not questions because they tell you, what you want and where you have to go for it. And Jesus always says, but I don't know what you really need. Right? And the answer to that is peace of mind. Because what we really need is that fertile garden. I always say that peace is the fertile soil from which awareness grows. Awareness of who I am and what my purpose is. Everything else is a statement that I am here, I'm separated. And because I am, I need a blue shirt. All right? Or I need the correct amount of coffee. And it's just to establish that the separation is real. All right? Just notice these things, okay? You know, she's not saying, stop doing that. It's not putting it that way. It's just notice these things, okay? And notice where the answers are. And notice where the answer is. It's in that holy instant. It's in that moment that you just stop. Put everything down for a moment. You know, years ago, the first book I ever read about stress and the body's reactions to stress and how it's involved in the thinking process and things like that. Right? It's all about establishing the fact that I'm separated. Right? And everything causes stress. Right? And you know, actually, I forgot where I was going with that. Isn't that weird? I think the sirens distracted me. Sorry about that. I'm getting old. All right, but he's telling us that the questions, they just, they pose themselves to establish that the world is real. All right, and it's inside is where we want to go. It's inside to the holy instant. All right, that's where the answer is. All right, because the ultimate question, right? Jesus at one point says that the only question there is what is it for? Right? Then later on, a couple of chapters down, he contradicts himself. He says the only question is, what am I? Right? Because these other questions in the world, these other problems, they've already established what I am. I'm a separated individual, and I need to decide which one of these things is good for me. Okay? Well, how do I get out of this one? Stuff like that. Okay? Which illusion do you prefer? It's just a form of preference. Paragraph 5. A pseudo-question has no answer. It dictates the answer, even as it asks. Thus is all questioning within the world a form of propaganda for itself. Just as the body's witnesses are but the senses from within itself, so are the answers to the questions of the world contained within the questions that are asked. Where answers represent the questions, they add nothing new, and nothing has been learned. An honest question is a learning tool that asks for something that you do not know. It does not set conditions for response, but merely asks what the response should be. But no one in a conflicted state is free to ask this question, for he does not want an honest answer where the conflict ends. All right, that's something to think about. All right, that no one in the conflicted state is free to ask a question, for he doesn't want an honest answer, because the conflict will end. All right? An honest question is a learning tool that asks for something you do not know. All right? This is why in that probably annoying phrase that I use, help me to see correctly, right? There is that suggestion that all I want is peace. Right? What does peace look like in this situation? So I'm asking for something that I don't know. Right? I'm not saying, which is best for me, green or blue? Which is best for me, this job or that job? Right? I'm just saying, what does peace look like? Right? I want my perceptions corrected. I want to see the innocence. I want to see the peace. I want to become aware of it and have it reflected to me in my life while I'm still here. Right? Okay. This is all form of questioning within the world is a form of propaganda for itself. Just keeps repeating that idea. Right? Asking for a worldly solution is propaganda for the world. The world is real. I need to get on. Right. An honest question is a learning tool. Right. And basically, when we're saying, help me to see correctly, right, that is the question. What does peace look like in this situation? What does love look like in this situation? Right? And it asks for something that you do not know. And it does not set a condition for the response. It just merely asks what the response should be. I want to respond peacefully. I mean, that's a great foundation for your day. I want to respond to everything within my day. I want to respond peacefully. But that last sentence there, he tells us, he says, I know you're still afraid of that. Right? You're still afraid of the ultimate awareness of who you are. Right? We're still afraid of that ultimate awareness of innocence and peace. He says, no one in a conflict state is free to ask this question, for he does not want an honest answer where the conflict ends. All right? It's like I still want to be an individual, so just help me out here in this situation. All right? Because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of becoming a nebbish. I'm a nothing. Right? I'm afraid of being destroyed by the truth, by God. Right? I'm afraid to have the conflict end. Right? Who would I be without my conflicts, my likes and dislikes, my pains and my joys? Who would I be without that? So I'm afraid to have this dream end. Right? Jesus just keeps trying, through the Course, keeps trying to coax us, right, and comfort us and tell us you're going to like it. Just take little steps, right? Take the little steps Paragraph 6. Only within the holy instant can an honest question honestly be asked. And from the meaning of the question does the meaningfulness of the answer come. Here is it possible to separate your wishes from the answer, so it can be given you and also be received. The answer is provided everywhere, yet it is only here it can be heard. An honest answer asks no sacrifice because it answers questions truly asked. The questions of the world but ask, of whom is sacrifice demanded? Asking not if sacrifice is meaningful at all. And so, unless the answer tells of whom it will remain unrecognized, unheard, and thus the question is preserved intact because it gave the answer to itself. The holy instant is the interval in which the mind is still enough to hear an answer that is not entailed within the question asks. It offers something new and different from the question. How could it be answered if it but repeats itself? So this is basically what we've been talking about. The holy instant is the interval in which the mind is still enough to hear an answer that is not entailed within the question. Okay. What job should I take? The answer is entailed within the question. I need a job because I think I'm separated from God and I have to maintain myself, I have to take care of myself. Right? All those things that's still remaining in the conflict. Right? But in the holy instant, in the present moment, right, in that moment when we just drop away all expectations and desires, and all we want is to see what peace looks like in this situation, you will hear an answer that's not entailed in the question. And you might see the peace, all right, just transcend. The peace will fall onto your situation. All right, it will take the form of your situation. All right, because all I wanted was to know, how can I be peaceful? How can I see the world correctly? Right, which is through the eyes of peace. So the answer will offer you something new, right? Different from the question. Right? Paragraph 7. Therefore, attempt to solve no problems in a world from which the answer has been barred, but bring the problem to the only place that holds the answer lovingly for you. Here are the answers that will solve your problems, because they stand apart from them. And see what can be answered. What the question is. All right? See what can be answered, and see what the question really is. Within the world, the answers merely raise another question, though they leave the first unanswered. In the holy instant, you can bring the question to the answer and receive the answer that was made for you. Right? Jesus is acknowledging the fact that we believe we're specific. All right? So he says, so the truth will take a specific form for you. It's the answer that's made for you. But in generalization, the answer is always the same for everyone. It's made for everyone. You are innocent. You have not separated from your source. Right? And within that realization lies the answer to every problem. You have never left your source. You are as innocent as the moment that your source projected you, or extended you, I should say. And he says, in that moment when you stop and just come to that stately calm within, you bring your question to the answer. My friends that I've been mentioning recently, who are ordained ministers and practitioners in the agape methods, right? One of the things I heard one of their ministers say was that, to paraphrase, because I'm not sure I'm getting it 100% right, all things are answered in the presence of your higher self. It's the same idea. In that holy instant, you are connected with the memory of who you really are. Right? And within that memory is the innocence. And that innocence will help you in this world of dreams. Right? You will see your problem differently. And last night I was listening to just the tail end. Sorry I missed the whole thing now. I didn't realize it was on. The reopening, so to speak, of the New York Philharmonic, all right, the Philharmonic Hall, okay, and they were playing Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, which includes the Ode to Joy. And I just caught the last few minutes of it, but they were putting in captions for those of us who don't speak German. All right, and one of the captions just caught my eye and just lifted me into a different place, because the caption said, "All men are brothers where the gentle spirit abides." All right. Now, granted, this is hundreds of years old, or however long ago Beethoven lived and composed, and he took that poem, all right, and that's the language of the era, but it's basically saying the same thing. We are all one. Everything is one. There is no conflict where the gentle spirit abides, right? Where the memory of your true self abides. There is no conflict. Right? There are only answers. Right? And as we bring our perceived problems to the answer, that holy instant, that place where the gentle spirit abides, we will go there more and more, and we will see the world more and more differently. Right? I mean, in my life, it seems to work out, incrementally. You keep doing it, the more you see differently. Right? And the more you want to see differently, until that moment comes when the truth arises in your mind in totality, and all the world and everything in the world and everything in the universe that of form reflects the oneness, the innocence. Right? And that's what we're progressing to. And he says it really doesn't need time, but that's our experience. All right, and he's telling you that all truth can be found in that holy instant. All right, help me to see my problem correctly. That's all. Help me to see myself correctly. All right. What does peace look like? What does love look like in this form? He says the answer was made for you. All right, here are the answers that will solve your problems because they stand apart from your problems. All right. And the answer is made for you. And all the answers are found where the gentle spirit abides. All righty then. Let us follow the gentle path. Okay. And I will see you and speak to you and with you next week or soon, whatever. All right then. Bye now.